what's going on, you guys? Nick here with Nick Strength and Power. I've got a couple of interesting stories for you guys today. The first story that I've got for you guys today, some brand new physique updates from Nick Walker at 7.5 weeks out from the 2025 Pittsburgh Pro. Now, I was actually pretty impressed by these updates. These are more of the type of updates that I wanted to see from Nick, where he's starting to show a little bit more detail and he's starting to look a little bit more refined. Because some of the early updates that we saw from Nick when he was near and over 300 pounds, when he first started working with his new coach, Kyle Wilkes, we saw, and he said this in a podcast, that the immediate goal upon switching coaches was to put some of that size back on that he had lost prior. So I felt like in some of those earlier updates, especially like the 302, 303 pound updates, you weren't seeing a whole lot of detail from Nick. The midsection was looking a little bit distended, and it was just kind of a more inflated version of his physique. But now that we're getting closer to the show and we're starting to see more updates like this as he refines down that size that he put on, I think he's starting to look a lot more impressive here now. And we got a front double bicep, a side chest, and a most muscular from Nick today. And again, this is 7.5 weeks out, but I wanted to compare it to some of the updates that we got from Martin Fitzwater the other day. Now, take this caveat, or we'll take this with a grain of salt, that Martin's updates were from 12 weeks out. So there's about 5 weeks of prep differentiating Nick's update and Martin. So Nick's is a lot more recent. So it's not really an apples to apples comparison, but they are the most recent updates that we have from Martin. And I think that Martin realistically is the biggest threat to Nick in Pittsburgh based on what we saw back in New York with Nick and Martin, which Martin has obviously improved since that New York Pro. And also, you've got to kind of take it with a grain of salt that Nick is not fully showing his legs here. But one of the shots that impressed me the most, comparing the two, even with the caveat that they're different points in prep, is the side chest. I feel like that's always been a pretty strong pose for Nick. The side shots in general, Nick just looks really thick and dense. But when you look at his leg in this side chest, that's the kind of detail that I want to see from Nick. You can see that there's added size there, but look at how split up and detailed, what you can see of the leg. It looks really impressive. And you can see the way Nick's hamstring is just hanging there, just a lot of size, a lot of thickness to the legs. And particularly, I want to see what his legs look like more from the front, actually in these poses, because that was the biggest kind of point of criticism, was the quads from the front. And then obviously people are curious to see a straight-on shot of the hamstrings, because that was where he was injured. But from what we're seeing here, the legs certainly look bigger. And we've seen like these mirror shots of Nick straight on from the front, but I'd like to see like a front double bicep straight on where you can see Nick's quads, a back double bicep straight on where you can see Nick's hamstrings. But I think that these updates that we're seeing from Nick, even compared to Martin's, and again, Martin's are 12 weeks out, but this is more the Nick that we're used to seeing. And I think that Nick is going to meet expectations at the Pittsburgh show. I don't know for sure that I could say Nick's going to win at this point, because I think what Martin has been able to do over the last year and a half has been very impressive. And I think he's probably the favorite on paper to win the Pittsburgh show. But I also have a feeling that Nick is not going to drop the ball here. And I think, and I hope, we're going to see a very impressive and very competitive package from Nick that Nick knows he needs to bring. And I just don't want to undersell how important of a show I think this is for Nick. So I'm happy to see updates that are starting to trend in this direction. Now we're starting to see more detail. We're starting to see more refinement. And this is more of the Nick that we are used to seeing. And next up in the news, we just got a new physique update from Keone Pearson. He's a couple months now removed from his gyno surgery, so you can still see kind of the remnants, that scar tissue there in his chest. But we just looked at Nick Walker's front double bicep, and a lot of people would say that's one of the more impressive front double biceps in the world in bodybuilding right now. But you look at Keone, hit this front double bicep in this most recent update video, and I would put Keone's front double really against anybody in the world right now. And I was looking, the comments are all saying kind of the same thing on Keone's post, is that there's a lot of open bodybuilders right now hoping that Keone stays in 212. And every time I see these off-season updates of Keone, my thought is the same thing. I can't wait to see what this guy looks like when he goes open. And I saw a comment that was like comparing him to Derek Lunsford, essentially, that Keone would be the next guy to become the next champ meaning he would win the 212 Olympia and also potentially win the Open Olympia, just like Derek was able to do. And I think if anybody right now is able to do that, it's Keone. I think there was a brief window where a lot of people were hoping that it might be Chris Bumstead, because Chris's focus on open bodybuilding, even though he said that was going to be his last show ever, a one and done, there was a lot of people, I think, just in the back of their mind, hoping that Chris gave it one run at the Open Olympia, and then Chris would have had the potential to be the first champ with classic physique and open bodybuilding. But as far as the next guy to do it in general, I think Keone right now stands the best chance. And he seems like he's made it pretty clear that it won't be this year in 2025. He's going for the 212 Olympia this year. But I feel like once he gets 3, I feel like he's going to go for the Open title. And this is kind of an interesting conversation that segues towards the men's physique prize money conversation that we were having the other day. And people would say, well, why would Keone want to do that? He could just stay in 212 and keep winning, as many as Flex Lewis. He could win maybe as long as he wants to in 212. That prize money disparity of $50,000 for first place at the 212 Olympia and $600,000 for the open bodybuilding first place, that's Keone's incentive right there. I mean, obviously, the legacy portion of it, winning both Olympias, is a massive accomplishment that only Derek Lunsford has done at this point. But just putting that prize money into perspective, if Keone were able to win the Open Olympia one time, that would be the equivalent in prize money of winning the 212 Olympia 12 more times. And even just to be runner-up, so Derek Lunsford at his first Open Olympia was runner-up in the Open Olympia. The prize money for runner-up at the 2024 Olympia, which was Hadi Chupin, was $250,000, which would be the equivalent of winning the 212 Olympia 5 years in a row. So even if Keone were to come in and shoot for second place, prize money-wise, it'd be as good as winning 5 212 Olympias. So I think there's certainly financial incentive. There's legacy incentive. And I think there's also the fan incentive, because this is clearly, looking at the comments, the fans want to see Keone in Open. And I think when you see this big, full, round, 3D, off-season version of Keone, that's the closer image you get to envisioning him as an Open guy, where he's not worried about the weight cap necessarily. But let me know what you guys think in the comments down below about both Nick and Keone. Now, next up in the news, we got a couple new videos from Ramon Dino today. And Ramon, I've seen different reports about what he's weighing, ranging from 120 kilos to 122 kilos, so somewhere between like 260 and 269 pounds. But the condition that Ramon is in here for such a heavy weight is really impressive, and it makes you wonder, like we've said so many times, I mean, that second place position has been so interchangeable in classic physique. And even though Ramon didn't do the Arnold Classic this year, he didn't have the best outing at the Olympia. He dropped down to 4th at this past year's Olympia in 2024 after being really the main guy challenging Chris for a couple of years. But the question is, does that matter? Can he be back on top in 2025? Because all these guys that we're talking about now, whether it be Mike Sommerfeld or Logan Franklin or Urs Kausinski or Terrence Ruffin coming back or even Matt Grego or Wesley Vissers, Ramon has beaten all of these guys in the very recent future. So what's to say that he couldn't do it again? I mean, in 2023, he beat all these guys. And he did sit out the Arnold this year, which makes me wonder if he's going to take all this time, because he is already qualified. He does not need to do a show and qualify for the 2025 Mr. Olympia. So he could take this entire time from the last Olympia to next to just focus on the Olympia, and that could be a huge advantage for him, which he hasn't had in a couple of years now. He always has competed in between the Olympia and the next Olympia. And I feel like everybody has kind of already passed that torch to Mike Sommerfeld, but I feel like classic physique is really the most unpredictable division as far as who the top guy is, because the only thing that's been predictable in classic physique up until this point was that Chris is going to win every year. As far as that second place placing, it's changed so much, and there's been so many different types of physiques in that top 2 spot. I feel like any one of those guys could still win the Olympia this year. I I don't think it's predictable at all. And what's to say that a guy like Logan Franklin doesn't go back to the drawing board for a little bit, put on some more muscle like the judges told him to, make the improvements that they wanted him to make, then come back bigger at the Olympia with that same conditioning? Logan Franklin could be right up in there in a top spot. And maybe we are talking about, Logan and Mike as top two even at the Olympia. And we have a brand new rivalry, brand new top two this year. Who knows? But let me know what you guys think in the comments down below. Now, the final story that I have for you guys today, there are some brand new updates from Stephane Matala, a.k.a. Stephane NFC, a.k.a. Mr. Unchained, a.k.a. the French Ramon Dino. That's a lot of a.k.a.s. But he was a classic physique guy that was known for having a really crazy structure. He had some resemblances in his physique to Ramon Dino, but he had trouble making weight, and he felt like that was throwing off his physique. And so now he's switching to open bodybuilding, taking some time to grow into open, despite missing the classic physique Olympia. I believe it was the past 2 years. So we never really got to see him realize his full potential in classic, but a lot of people loved his physique, and he posted these 2 updates on his story here recently, obviously looking significantly bigger than he did as a classic guy. Now, my question for you guys, and what this physique update made me think about, was who is going to be the surprise breakout bodybuilder of 2025? Who's going to be kind of the new name that makes the most noise and becomes the most talked about? I think Stephane could be in the running for that. I think if Neckzilla actually competes, he could be in the running for that. We've kind of stopped talking about Neckzilla Rubiel altogether. But I mean, obviously we have these names that we're always talking about, like Nick Walker, for example. There's top guys that are just always in the conversation, but who is the guy in 2025 that's going to surprise us? Who's the new name that's going to be added to this conversation? That's what I want to know in the comments below. Do you think it could be Stephane? Do you think it could be somebody like Rubiel? In classic physique, I'm seeing a lot of talk about Jack Eagles. He's got a very impressive physique. He could be a fast-rising star. Let me know in the comments down below. But that's going to wrap it up for the video today, guys. I hope you did, in fact, enjoy it. Make sure you like the video, subscribe to the channel, click that bell notification icon if you have not already. And as always, I love you guys. I appreciate you guys. Nick Strength and Power signing out. All right, guys, don't forget to click that like button and subscribe to this channel if you enjoy the content. Also, check out my Instagram at Nick Strength Power, my Facebook page, which is simply Nick Strength and Power, my secondary YouTube channel, Nick Strength and Vlogs, for vlogs and bonus content that you will not see on this channel. And consider subscribing to my third YouTube channel, Nick Strength and Pokemon, which is all things Pokemon and trading card games, completely unrelated to this channel. So if you're into that, give that one a look. And all links to merchandise and social media will be in the description box below. If you guys want a Nick Strength and Power t-shirt, that will be in the Shopify link below. Have a great day.